The Santa Barbara Airport was constructed within the historic boundaries of the Goleta Slough, a coastal wetland formed by several creeks that converge on their way to the Pacific Ocean. Besides acting as a giant water filter, the slough provides a unique habitat for many birds and plants.
We recently discovered through this project the tidewater goby, which is a federally endangered species, which is really exciting because they hadn't seen that here for over 20 years.
Great horned owls, I think, nesting in the trees, California quail, red-tailed hawk is a common one, and then many of the small species such as the yellow warbler. So it's a very rich area.
When the Marines built their runways on the property during World War II, the slough was just another muddy spot to be paved over. Today, however, the airport department considers the Goleta Slough an asset worthy of stewardship.
Well, the Goleta Slough encompasses almost half of airport property, and just like any of our other assets, we consider the slough an ecological asset to both the airport and the community, and feel that it's, as part of our stewardship, important that we improve the health of the slough.
Since 1998, the airport has been restoring wetland in the Goleta Slough as part of habitat mitigation requirements for airfield safety projects.
We are shifting the runway about 800 feet to the west of its present location and creating 2 runway safety areas for potential aircraft overruns or undershoots in the event of an emergency.
Because of the overrun safety projects, Tecolotido and Carneros Creeks were shifted 1,800 feet west of their present location. This relocation amounted to 133,400 cubic yards of cut and 116,500 cubic yards of fill. This is the second time the creeks have moved. They were first moved in the late 1960s when runway 725 was lengthened to become the airport's main runway. That's why the creeks before construction turned at sharp right angles.
With the new creek, we've made an effort to move the soils with all the macroinvertebrates in the old creek into the new creek channel, and we're keeping it moist until we introduce the tidal flows into the new creek, so that there'll be plenty of food and habitat for tidewater gobies and other fish.
Another significant area of restoration is Area I.
And a lot of people will remember this because up until a couple of years ago there was an old incinerator that was on this property. We're taking the areas that are just outside the orange fences and we're creating seasonal wetlands in this area.
Area I, which is adjacent to UCSB, will eventually create educational opportunities for students at the university.
What we'll be doing is creating a trail system through here that will be available to educational groups, and UCSB in particular may be doing some research out in this area as the restoration progresses. So it creates a real opportunity for us to work with our next door neighbor, UCSB, to help their mission as well as carry out ours.
The project is funded by an FAA grant as part of the Runway Safety Project. Old fill soil and non-native plants were removed from this area. The next step was adding 18,000 native plants to the site.
To make sure there's an adequate supply of native plants for all the restoration sites, the airport has constructed this native plant nursery located here on airport property. The species you see here was collected from seeds straight from the project sites.
The nursery will be maintained by Growing Solutions, a nonprofit education organization that provides native plants for restoration projects like the Goleta Slough. They say the difference between plants native to the region versus those from the exact area is subtle but significant.
They've evolved in particular areas. I mean, any given native plant for any given habitat, and they fill niches, and they supply habitat for everything from soil microbes, bugs, insects, birds, small mammals to everything.
Sloughs are unique in that ocean water flows back over them during high tides. Only a small portion of the Goleta Slough tidal wetlands remain. As part of the airport's efforts to improve natural flow to the slough, a small-scale project was constructed last fall to observe the effects of increased tidal circulation. Restoring tidal circulation will enhance the number of fish and birds that use the slough. There is concern that this may increase aviation bird strike hazards, so the overall objective of the project is to determine the feasibility of a long-term tidal restoration program at the Goleta Slough.
If it's successful and doesn't result in a situation where we have a risk for more bird strikes, then what we hope to do is be able to do this type of restoration throughout the entire slough and create more areas that are tidal channels.
With the restoration of Area I, the nursery, and increased tidal circulation, planners are hoping the slough will provide beautiful scenery, vital habitat, educational opportunities, as well as an example of successful restoration for other airports around the globe to follow.
Restoration is becoming more and more of a need throughout California because of all the impacts that we've caused throughout the state. So each project we learn something new. I mean, there's always unique circumstances and limitations with these kind of projects. So we kind of learn as we go and adapt and try to be as successful as possible.
I think it's something that we all cherish, those of us that live on the South Coast. And I'm very proud of the projects that we're doing in the slough to preserve it and for future generations.
Well, it's really important to maintain that kind of habitat for the migrant species that fly through in the spring and the fall, because we have lost so many of the habitats where they can stop and feed and rest and then move on to their breeding site or back to their winter site.
We've lost over 80–90% of coastal wetland habitat, so it's really important that we preserve it as much as we can, what's left.